the Brooklyn Nets only had one
Your
player.
guess is as good as mine.
Well, they're super interesting because, like a month ago, it makes sense that you only had one guy in your top 35 of your trade board is Royce O'Neal. They've won 3 of their last 17 games, 2 against Detroit, 1 against OKC. They're now outside of the play-in. Several players who theoretically would be coveted by contending teams, but they also do not have full control of their picks until 2028, which makes rebuilding moves more difficult. How would you approach this deadline if you were with the Nets?
Yeah, truly. Look, I would sell if it was me. So you're asking like what I would do. I would sell. I would move Mikal Bridges. I would move everything I can and try and like get everything gone. Yeah, like to me, like what we've seen from Mikal in Brooklyn, and there probably has not been a bigger fan of Mikal Bridges in the public sphere than me among national media. I have loved Mikal Bridges. I think he is a stud. I think he is like the perfect third or fourth option for a great team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's a number one, and they need to find the number one guy. Like they just really, really do. And look, maybe they can while Bridges is on the roster still, but Mikal is what I think he has 2.5 years left on that contract. Getting him would really potentially help another team, but also trading him, I think, would allow them to get very significant pick capital in a way that would really help them. Like if you're Memphis, you're looking like you're probably in a circumstance where you're going to end up with like a top 5 pick this year, something like that. You probably move that pick and other stuff for Mikal Bridges right now, knowing that you're going to have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart back next season. And your closing lineup at that point can be Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, Mikal Bridges, Jaren Jackson Jr. Like, that is an absurd lineup that would be awesome. And that's just like one of the teams that I think could theoretically try and get involved. And like, that's a team that like nobody is considering a buyer right now because they shouldn't be buying given that they had an absurd number of injuries all happen in a single week with Bane and Smart and Ja going down. Like, I think there are so many teams that would be involved in a Mikal Bridges like potential sweepstakes that it would drive the price through the roof. He's making $22 million a year for the next 2 years beyond this one. He is just the perfect guy for so many teams. Like if you're the Lakers, you give up everything that you have for him. I think if you're the Thunder, you give up everything that you've, not everything because they have way too much, but like you give up a lot of what the Nets want, I think, for Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
If you're, I'm just like trying to think of like other great teams. If you're Philly, I think he really would help Philly a lot. Like that would make an immense amount of sense for them. If you're, I'm trying to think of teams that have like a lot of assets. If you're New Orleans, I think that's the kind of like guy that would really represent an interesting shakeup move for them in some way if they wanted to, and like a good buy for them, a good buy opportunity because they have a lot of picks. If you're the Knicks, I think that you go for that and just continue to build the Villanova pipeline, right? Like every team, Miami would have an immense amount of interest, I would think.
Well,
every team.
To me the other day, Houston, because Houston offers something to the Nets that nobody else can, and is that control over your own picks again, which is like the biggest problem for them.
So that's like the biggest catch-22 in the league, right? So if you're Houston, you have these picks. You have 3 more years of their picks, I believe, beyond this one, right?
Yeah.
Do you trade 1 or 2 of those for Mikal Bridges, knowing that if you do that, these picks are going to be like really high leverage, high value picks?
Yeah.
Or do you assume that if they're looking to move Mikal Bridges to you potentially, that they're also probably looking to Mikal Bridges to move Mikal Bridges elsewhere? And thus you can get the full value of those picks on your own, where those might end up being seriously like top 5 picks if they move Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
And assume that we can just have like a pipeline of talent coming in that's like cost controlled and like unbelievably good and super high like leverage talent, or just like super high leverage picks that you could move in a deal for something like that. If I'm Houston, I kind of lean toward the latter if I'm them.
Yeah.
If they're offering Mikal Bridges to me, I'm kind of assuming that they'd be, and I'm not saying that they are, for what it's worth with Brooklyn. Like I've not gotten any impression that they're offering Mikal Bridges. This is all hypothetical based on what I would do, according to Alex's question here. But I have to say that just so people don't like, lose their minds.
Yeah.
But if I'm Houston, like I kind of bet that, if they're talking to me about Mikal Bridges, they're probably talking to other teams about Mikal Bridges. And I would assume he's going to get moved. And I'm going to bet that these picks will be very high value. And if that's the case, like I wouldn't want to move those picks for Bridges. Like I don't know if I would. I might move one of them.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't know about a lot of them.
But because they hold so much value, and Houston's got some bigger, unique expiring contracts in Jeff Green and Victor Oladipo. Like you could just trade them, basically Oladipo, Jeff Green, and these picks, because like those picks really do hold the future. Like this is why like the Nets are so uncertain about what they should do, because their future is in a stranglehold because of these picks. And so like if they could get them back somehow, like Houston wouldn't have to give up any of their young prospects for it because they hold so much value. Yeah. So it's just a really interesting situation.
Here's like also the great question for this hypothetical, and to be clear, still a hypothetical, because again, as far as I know, I have not heard anything about Mikal Bridges actually being on the market right now.
Yeah.
People seem to think that that's probably not going to happen. 2 weeks still to go, anything could change. But as of right now, that seems like it's the case. If you're talking specifically about Houston, though, would you rather move like Jalen Green than one of these picks? I probably would. And if you're Brooklyn, like if you're Brooklyn and you're putting Mikal Bridges on the market, you're probably going to find something better than Jalen Green upside wise, but like, I'm not 1,000% sure. Are you?
I'm 1,000% sure. Yes, I'm sure.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay. I like.
In fact, I've been 1,000% sure.
Wow. I've been low on Jalen Green for a while, so like this is coming from me. But there is still still a real chance that he can be like a high level scorer in the NBA on some level.
Sure.
But again, like the point you're making is the pick without giving up, without giving up like their younger prospects.
Yeah.
I just, if I'm Houston, I'm kind of playing the game of chicken the other way.
Yeah.
And saying,
I get that.
Well, I'd rather just have the picks, and you're probably going to move this guy anyway. So now we're going to end up with like probably 2 top 5 picks in the future. So why wouldn't we? Like, would you trade Mikal Bridges for a top 5 pick this year?
For this year? No.
That's all I'm getting? No.
Yeah, I would rather have Mikal Bridges than that. Would you?
Yeah.
Would you trade Mikal Bridges? Let's put actual names to this for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
Would you trade Mikal Bridges if you're Houston? Okay, if you're Houston, would you trade Alex Sarr and VJ Edgecombe for Mikal Bridges?
If I was Houston?
Yeah. No chance, right?
What?
You would trade both of those. You'd be willing to trade both of those guys for Mikal Bridges.
Houston's
8 years that come with team control over both of them for Mikal Bridges for 2 years.
They already have 2 very highly touted prospects in Cam Whitmore and Amen Thompson that they can't even play that much. They just went through 4 years of tanking. They really need 2 more young guys that they have to develop. Like they're ready. They want to win now. They made that deal for Van Vliet, brought in Jeff Green, brought in all these vets because they wanted to win now.
So I'll counter that and say, okay, if that's the case and you think they should move those picks, then is Mikal Bridges the best you can do by moving those picks?
That is a better question.
That's
debatable.
Yeah.
I think the answer is, and I love, again, big Mikal Bridges fan. I think he's outstanding. It's been weird to see him struggle a little bit on defense this year. Again, as you pick up offensive usage, sometimes those, struggles can happen a little bit more often. But yeah, like I think that you can do better than Mikal Bridges if you're offering that kind of high upside pick value. Like,
especially if he does get traded somewhere else, then all of a sudden now you have like the most valuable picks in the league.
Correct. Yeah. And we just saw like Pascal Siakam get traded for 3 first-round picks that might not be all that valuable, right?
Yeah.
And Siakam is a better player than Mikal Bridges. He's going to be more expensive than Mikal, which is a factor that matters too. But like I would rather have Siakam than Mikal Bridges. So if that's the kind of player that you can get for 3 first-round picks, even if he's expiring, whatever, there are factors why those picks were those picks. I'm thinking if I'm Houston, I can probably do better than Mikal Bridges for those picks.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're offering me Mikal Bridges, it means they're probably offering Mikal Bridges elsewhere.
Yeah.
That's the kind of
juicy little game theory.
That's right.
That's right.
This is what I think through here. No, but in terms of like the other stuff with the Nets, to continue to answer your question, because now we've talked about the Nets for a while. Seriously, the Nets are like the most interesting team at the deadline to me by far, because Definitely. And by the way, teams around the league like don't really know what they're going to do at the end of the day, because they do tend to get involved in like star conversations when these guys come available, because they do have all of these picks, but also they're bad. So how do you square that circle is difficult for them. I don't know what they're going to do. Like, they have a lot of guys that I think a lot of teams would really like. Royce O'Neal, I think, would be a really nice addition for a bunch of teams. A guy that can knock down 37 to 39% of threes, give a ton of defensive energy and effort on an expiring contract. That's a valuable player for somebody. Nick Claxton is on an expiring contract and, was one of the 6 best defensive players in the NBA last season. This season, he's not been quite that, but he's a guy that is really valuable. Dorian Finney-Smith has proven in Dallas in the past that he can be a really valuable player for a number of different teams. He's hitting 40% from 3 this season. He's versatile defensively. He's big. He's long. He can take on guys 2 through 4 consistently. There's just a lot of guys that I think can be valuable on that roster to teams across the league. So if they did sell, I think they would get real pick capital back. It's just that it wouldn't be their own pick capital. And at that point, you're tanking for nothing then.
Yeah.
I truly think that like the Nets are in probably the worst position in the NBA right now is where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't know where their win is.
Yeah.
Like, Detroit at least has Cade Cunningham.
What about the Wizards?
The Wizards are a fair argument against this.
All right. Okay.
But they own all of their own picks.
They do.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal.
They do. But the Nets, I mean, as you mentioned, like those, if they are trading them, they have the value of their trade assets dwarf what the Wizards could get if they decide to trade their guys.
100% agree with that. But I don't know that any of the assets that the Nets have outside of Bridges bring back like significant, like high-end, high upside value.
Yeah. I think that's
it's
fair.
more going to be like good, like cost control and like team control over prospects, draft picks, etc.